And I know this message is relentless. It's because the issue is this Christmas is going to see, again, people having to make choices about what they spend money on. Because they don't have the disposable income, because they are in the household recession that has now gone on for the best part of the entirety of the time that this mob have been in power, there is just very little money that is left. Channel 9 did a survey of the people on its website, and it says no presents, just cards, how Aussies are bracing for a cost of living Christmas. The survey of their people on their website, so again, not scientific but indicative, showed 49% of readers are going to be cutting back on gifts, food and drinks due to cost of living. One reader said the rise in costs of groceries and general living has put a dampener on Christmas. Sadly, the exchanging of gifts this year will be at an all-time low. It is so disappointing. In graph form, you can see that 49% of people say and agree with the sentiment that living costs are forcing you to host a budget Christmas this year. For 36, they're okay, and for a significant number of people, they just don't know yet. Again, inside the article, some survey respondents noted that they can barely afford everyday expenses like bills and groceries, and paying for Christmas feels like an impossibility. But guess what? The reason this becomes a political problem for the Prime Minister is the cost of living Christmas of 2024 is on top of the one from last year. The stories from last Christmas, where yes, Christmas will be more expensive this year. The National Australia Bank, more Australians planning for a low-cost Christmas. And on top of the 2024 and the 2023, what about the 2022 Christmas? How much more Christmas dinner will cost in 2022? And the ABC, cost of living pressures mean Australians are having a frugal Christmas this year. That's why it doesn't matter what they say in question time. When will this get through to the full-time political protectors of the Prime Minister in the media? That as much as he'd like to turn around and say, oh, we've got all of these incredible cost of living achievements, including too little too late tax cuts, that remember, for the people who truly need them the most, people in and around $40,000, well, $14 a week. They turn around and say, well, there's some free TAFE places. Great, I don't have a problem with that. But that's not millions of people that get access to that. Oh, cheaper childcare. Again, the extreme majority of people don't access that. Oh, cheaper medicines. Again, the extreme majority of people don't involve themselves in that system. And it does mean that, yes, for some on the margins, they have a policy to be able to turn around and say, look how we helped. But one thing that has been relentless over the past couple of years, of course, is the cost of electricity. And I'll get to that in a moment or two's time. Regardless of whether you are a pensioner, a young single person, a student living in a share house, or your classic, 2.4 kids and a dog and a white picket fence, the cost of everything from petrol in your car to insuring the car to paying off the house or paying the rent, way higher than anything this government has done to try to square the ledger. And then there's that number that just won't go away. The one that's been stuck in my head and will be every day between now and the next federal election, that the kid from Housing Commission has observed and ran an Australian economy that has produced 3 million people who are this close to homelessness. A bloke who has the arrogance to turn around and say, because it's to his political benefit, not to the reality of the time, that the worst is behind us. It's like a doctor walking in and saying, oh, guess what, you're cancer-free because I'm 2 days away from going on vacation. Where the reality is you're just as sick as you ever were. The Prime Minister even had the stones to say this in question time today.
People would have been in a much more difficult position if they didn't have their wages going up, their costs going down and inflation coming back to where it should be.
Again, this Canberra-centric idea that the headline figure is all that matters, when the reality is that the headline figure turns around and says that our economy is growing by 0.1%. And then you actually dig inside and largely it's government spending, including the hiring of tens of thousands of more public servants or pay rises for public servants that mean the Prime Minister can turn around and say, overall, there's been some significant wage rises. Have you got one? Has the family member who you know is struggling got one? Of course not. Oh, and inflation's back to where it should be. Because again, for them, it's just a giant arc. But for you, it's 1 month on top of 1 month, on top of 1 month, on top of 1 month, on top of 1 month. Which is why people complain like they do. It's why they can't be spun. It's why this is the determinant issue at the next federal election. We'll see whether the Liberal Party can be trusted to have an alternative vision. They need to have one. Otherwise, just pointing at the problem is not going to help. Again, if you want to look to the American election for some sort of answers here, and I'm not saying everyone's going to pull a Trump, remember what his position was. No tax on tips. I'm going to halve your electricity bills because we're going to go back to the fossil fuels which push down the prices. No tax on social security. There was an alternative financial offering that was on the table. It'd be nice to see the alternative government start to put that vision in place, because when they do, then the election outcome, in my view, is not going to be a big question anymore. People are ready to break up with a Prime Minister who has BS'd them and had the wrong priorities for too long. And it doesn't matter whether he's been there for 1 term or 16 terms. When they turn on you, they turn on you. When they stop listening to you, they stop listening to you. And it doesn't matter how great your scare campaign is or how many people write the opinion pieces in favour of you. Because look what happened with Kamala. Look what happened with Stephen Miles. Look what happened with Dominic Perrottet. When the tide is out, the tide is out. And no amount of teals or greens are most likely going to save your backside when, again, front page of the Australian today. I don't normally talk about yesterday's news or this morning's news tonight. I'm always focused on tonight and looking forward rather than back, but this was important. Inflation pain is going to go all this year, all next year and into 2026. So good luck at an election, Prime Minister.